There's a lot of debate in the markets right now as to where we are in the business cycle, given all the M&A talk, given the strength of the earnings. Some say we're really just at the beginning. Margins will continue to expand from here, and some say we're right at the top. Where do you stand?
Well, I think that we are definitely in a recovery mode in Europe. And let me tell you something, that the operational leverage in Europe is much higher. So for 1% sales increase in Europe, earnings increases by over 2.5% compared to only 1.8 in US, and even higher in Japan. Now, clearly the political risk has weaned off, so we are not seeing that as a big factor. But growth is the real story, because if you look at going back to 1990, in OECD numbers, France grew only 1.4% and 1.2% for Italy. So growth has to come back, and I think that we will get that growth coming back.
I'm just looking at Bank of America numbers, Bank of America Merrill Lynch inflow numbers. They're saying that allocation to years on equities is the third highest on record. Do you think, Manish, that Europe can actually deliver this time? They've disappointed investors ever so often.
So I would say that for me, I'm more equal weight Europe, not overweight Europe. I think that one has to be very cautious about the promises coming down the line. In France, you still have the parliamentary elections remaining. Sure. There are signs that you have elections in Austria, and there are signs that you may have election going down the road in Italy as well. So I think risk is not completely going to go away. So it would be foolish to completely rush in and buy everything, but there's no point of being underweight Europe as it was the case in the past.
How do you feel about the US? Much of the Trump trade that was left in the market, even though you could argue that wasn't left to be unwound, was actually exiting the market last week. Now we're seemingly back to square one. We're back to the levels that we were at November before Trump was elected president. What do you do with the markets now? Do you still hope that this reflation trade will come back?
See, I think that politicians like to think that they are the most important people, but I think the GDP growth number are the most important one. So in US, I look at one data, which is housing start data. Housing start data is looking still strong. So yes, there is some stop in terms of people talking about inflation trade going back or forth. But I think as long as we don't see any recession fears, you have to be long US, and I am long US.
So are you saying it doesn't matter what other revelations come out about Trump?
No, I think it does matter. So people have started comparing to impeachment and what happened to Watergate. Let's look at what was Watergate. You're talking about 1974. US was coming off gold standard. You had oil embargo, oil price was rising. Inflation was double digit. You're talking about double digit inflation. US was in a recession. It's not quite the same we are now. So I'm not saying that nothing will happen, but I think just to run over everything and say impeachment and Watergate is just too much of hyperbole that people are talking about.